middle-aged.
The sheriff calls us outlaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. I'm Ross and I am with Adam as always, and this is episode 12. Adam, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
I'm alright, thanks. I'm normally quite organised before we start, and don't get me wrong, I'm not organised, but we've been having a bit of a Bosch box set fest recently, so I've just run upstairs from quite a important episode of Bosch there, and I'm a bit on edge. So
okay,
if I sound like I'm on edge, that's why. That's all.
I can't give any spoilers because I've never seen it. So
you're missing out. Good. It's good. Never seen it at all. I recommend it if you're looking for a good.
That's good because I think through the last year I feel like I've watched almost everything. So yeah, that's good. It's good to know.
There's 6 seasons, I think. So keep
good.
You busy for a couple of weeks, knowing you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So after the scarring of WrestleMania 37 and all that went with that, we went back to the movies last week, which was fun. Yep. And since then we've decided to revert to childhood and go even further back in time. We're going back to 1998, and we're going to camp out here for a bit.
Awesome.
So our plan was to start in January 98 and work our way through the world of professional wrestling from January to December. And that includes WWF, WCW and ECW. So where else to start but with the Royal Rumble in 1998. Here we are. How'd you enjoy revisiting this period in time?
Yeah, it was really good. I had this fear that I would watch it and it wouldn't be good. And I think when we look through old WrestleManias and we both looked at ones that we thought, oh, this will be great, and then you actually watch it and it's not. But what I did, and I know you did similar, is I thought, right, I'll watch a Raw before the Rumble, then watch the Rumble and just get a feel for what the storylines are. And I was happy to find myself thinking, no, this is good. This is going to be a fun series of shows we're going to do. Yeah,
and I think that's going to work out quite like a good way to do things. Is what we'll take in the kind of go home show, whether that's Nitro or Raw, or I think it was just called ECW TV possibly. We'll take in the one before, we'll take in the event, and then we'll probably take in the one after as well, and then just have a wee natter about that.
Yeah, but definitely it'll be fun for me with ECW because I can't say for sure that I've seen everything that's out there, so that'll definitely be pretty entertaining for me.
Nice. I feel a bit like that with WCW. Is never, certainly at this time period, I don't recall watching Nitro or anything like that, so I'm quite looking forward to that. I'm sure some of it's a bit of a car crash, but you know what they say about car crash TV.
Yeah.
Cool. So what do you want to do? Well, we just jump into the Go Home Raw.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some impressions from it. So just kind of setting the scene. We've got Shawn Michaels as WWF champion at this point.
Yeah.
The number one contender seems to be The Undertaker.
Yeah.
We've got the Intercontinental Championship is on The Rock, and he's involved in a sort of multitude of storylines, but his primary sort of contender Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
We've got the tag belts on the Outlaws, who are just seem to be completely off the leash as far as creative's concerned, which is brilliant. Yeah. Number one contenders, the Legion of Doom, and the only other belt that there is a European Championship, and that's on Triple H, who appears to be injured. I don't know if that was a kayfabe injury or if it was a genuine injury. I don't know if you know.
I think it was genuine, and I know that just by the fact he's on TV, and I'm fairly sure he's active at Mania. The way he is at the Rumble, which we'll talk around, I get the feeling he's maybe closer to returning than it looks on TV.
Right. Cool. So, yeah. One question for you. Do you remember... So these episodes of Raw seem to be split into... I guess there are 2 hours. They're about 90 minutes on the network, but obviously there's no adverts or anything like that. It seemed to be split into like an hour of Raw, and then was the War Zone, was that like post-Watershed or something like that? Yeah,
I think that's the way it was split, and they sort of set it up like it's 2 shows, because the second part seems to have its own introduction, and I think the commentary teams change as well, the announce teams. So yeah, and when I saw it, I remembered that being the case when I watched it when I was young, and it must be a Watershed thing, because everything that's a bit more risky does seem to take place in the second half.
Yeah. It's odd, and I don't remember it being like that, but it's still really refreshing to watch a 1.5 hour episode of Raw that's not laborious, and it makes sense. There's storylines. We'll get into it, but I don't know if this struck you. It certainly struck me. Some of this, there's no. I don't feel like a lot of the storylines that are going on are just linear. You've got people interacting with other people who are not involved in their storyline. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what they're pretty good at here and now is kind of sowing seeds for things that are going to happen. And it just seems such a better structured product. And you sort of tap into some long-running storylines that are, I think, kind of always there, but not always the focal point for the performer. And it just, I don't know, you used the word refreshing before. It's got that feel to it.
Absolutely.
It just seems so well structured.
It does. So we've got DX, which at this point in time is just Michaels, Triple H and Chyna. Chyna, like I know we've seen her round about WrestleMania when we're watching the WrestleManias, but when you think of what she looked like at WrestleMania 17 compared to what she looks like on this, it's quite a transformation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so we've got DX, and like I say, we've got the 3 of them, and they're involved in a bit of a thing with Owen Hart, which is probably unavoidable for WWF, I'd imagine, even if they don't see a lot of potential in Owen Hart, and that's clear from them kind of pushing him towards Triple H in the European Championship rather than Michaels.
I mean, what are we, 3-4 months removed from the Montreal screw job? And I think not long after it they gave Owen Hart a new contract, and he was the only one, I think they were happy to let Bulldog and Anvil and all that leave. I think they saw talent in the worker that is Owen Hart. But I think that is the way they see his position. I don't think they see him as a guy that's going to go after the world title and Shawn Michaels. I think they're positioning him where they think he sort of fits.
It's sad. I've been thinking about this a lot since I watched this, and watched these 2 Raws in the Rumble, and I think so the last pay-per-view in December was DX in Your House, D-Generation X, or whatever you call it. And I want to say that Owen, I don't 100% know, but I think Owen attacked Shawn Michaels post that match. Maybe was he fighting Shamrock Shawn Michaels? Maybe
main event. It was Shamrock Michaels, I
think they had Owen come and attack Shawn Michaels. So, like, you have got the sowing of the seeds of a feud there. I like, we'll get into Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. It's a classic match, that casket match. But I just feel like this is a missed opportunity to give Owen that opportunity to take the next step. Potentially have a title feud.
I suppose the only thing with it is they would have gone quite short-lived with it, because I think they've decided long before this that they're going Austin.
That's fair.
But you know, it could have been done in the... Yeah, I don't know exactly when Owen started reappearing after the screw job and all that on TV, but, you know, I don't even remember them spending any length of time giving him any sort of animosity with Michaels directly or anything, which they could have done.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, like I say, we've got DX kind of involved in a storyline with Owen. We've also got DX involved with Undertaker, and Michaels is obviously involved with Undertaker. We're not that far removed from Kane debuting, and that's all pretty much linked to this feud with Undertaker and Kane and Shawn Michaels. So on this programme we've got Michaels announcing Kane as the newest member of DX, and that's the kind of last thing that we get on this show. We've got the whole thing around Tyson, obviously.
Yeah.
And we've got Vince. I think as part of this Raw, Vince invites Tyson to join him at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because they're obviously, I think, trying to deflect through this show from the idea that Kane would actually align with Michaels, and they make it look like it's a bit of a, you know, just a distraction technique by Michaels. But obviously we're going to talk around what actually happens in the Rumble title match and things like that. But I think, to be honest, it was like a deflection tactic to make it look like, he would never do that. This is all fake. It's all just Michaels trying to get a rise out of Undertaker.
And you do kind of, I think you can believe that as well. I definitely took that from it. And JR was getting very, very excited at the prospect of the two brothers signalling each other like two sort of animals to say that they've joined the pack together. It was really weird. Yeah,
he had some interesting wording through all this. Yeah,
he did. What's your take on makeupless Paul Bearer?
Kinda. I don't know, a little bit worried for him. He didn't really. He didn't look great. It was weird.
It was. It almost looks more terrifying without the makeup. But when I was watching the Raw after the Rumble, my wife was kind of coming in and out the room, and she goes, "Is that guy's name Paul Bearer?" You know, like you've lived with it so long that you didn't even sort of you don't really register. Yes, called Paul Bearer. Yes, I am still watching this shit. Right. So some other stuff that's going on. We've got the whole Mark Merrow being jealous of Sable thing going on. We've got a really odd relationship between Mark Merrow and Goldust going on. You've got Goldust dressing up as Sable. Yeah,
they're really pushing the strangeness of the Goldust character, and I think this is a little bit after he's had the sort of TV interview breakup with Terry
Runnels,
and he's now aligned himself with Luna, and I think they keep saying on commentary that he's just attention seeking, and
that's right. JR says that a lot.
Yeah, it's said many times, and I think they're maybe just I don't know if they're just trying to push it as far as they can with this sort of character, and it sort of comes out in some pretty interesting outfits at certain points.
It certainly does. The artist formerly known as Goldust, we should say.
Yeah.
At this point in time, we've got the NWA. We've got the NWA kind of invading. Yeah. A kind of like light invasion, a polite invasion of WWF by the NWA. You've got Jeff Jarrett. Who else you got? Is it the Rock and Roll Express?
Yes.
With Cornette.
Yep. I just hated this.
I
said to you before that. It felt really like they're trying to bring a sort of hokey environment into what at the time was pretty cutting edge in terms of the way it was going. And I'm all for a balance. You know, I think you need something to keep traditional wrestling fans interested, but I just don't think this was it. Every segment, every time I saw them, I just sort of thought,
But it doesn't fit in here. It's a bit water and oil. Like I'll tell you one thing though, it's the best I've ever seen Jeff Jarrett look.
Okay.
I think he looks quite cool in like the Kurt Angle type all in one.
Did you?
Thing.
Right, okay.
He wasn't calling anybody slap nuts. So.
Well, yeah, I quite liked him when he was it a guitar? No, a guitar, when he used to, hit people over the head with it and all that. It was never, in my mind, a high on the card guy, but I quite liked that version. But yeah,
like silver shorts and Deborah.
Yeah. And he was never. I never found him that interesting, but at least I thought he had a little bit of an edge to him. Then I don't know what I make of him in this guys or the NWA stuff.
It always baffles me that they wanted to have him feuding with Austin.
Yeah,
I can't remember what time that was. Was that roundabout nowish?
Nah, it must be a bit after this because I think he's already left and it's when he comes back.
Oh, right.
Because he cut a promo in the ring and mentioned something about Austin. Austin didn't like it because he had no intention of ever working with him. He just, I think, saw him as very beneath, and he's got a new podcast actually, and I listened to the first episode and it was pretty long-winded but quite interesting.
Was it? Am I right in saying it was the first episode all about him asking for that money before he was due to drop the title to China?
Yeah, I mean it doesn't, when you hear his story it doesn't come off as bad because all it is he's already worked all the shows, and the way it works is depending on where you are in terms of your guaranteed money, the company kind of make up the difference at the end of the year. So if you're on a guarantee of, I don't know, 500,000 but you've only made 400,000, they will give you that extra 100,000 at the end of the year.
Right.
But him, because he's leaving, and I think his contract's up, so I think he can just walk, but he's basically due some money from the company, and he works out what he thinks it should be and then kind of tells them, give me guarantees this is going to be paid and I'll go out and do your match. So
nice.
He's already earned the money, if you like. So it didn't come off quite as bad, but whether he would have actually not gone out, he doesn't really confirm that.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it was quite full on, Ultimate Warrior style. It didn't come across as bad as that, anyway.
Fair play to you, Jeff. and probably the kind of the next level down for the kind of Michaels and Undertaker stuff is probably the Nation of Domination stuff that's kind of dominating. No pun intended.
I absolutely loved this, and I kind of forgot how much I loved this. But where we are in terms of the story is you've got your members, which are Farouk as the leader, you've got Kama, you've got D'Lo, and you've got The Rock. And The Rock is quite brilliantly playing this young, brash, arrogant, cocky member of the Nation. He's got the Intercontinental title and all that. But you're kind of sowing the seeds of the fact that he wants to be in charge, but he's doing it in quite an immature way a lot of the time, and he's got his facial expressions and he's undermining Farouk and things like that, and almost doing it in a way that he thinks Farouk doesn't see it, but he does, and he's aware, but he's just irritated by this young guy.
He really is. He plays that well, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think you said to me when we were doing some research for this that this is maybe your favourite version of The Rock, and I absolutely love it as well. I think it's because he's not there yet and he's not on top, but he's kind of acting like somebody who is. Whereas when he is on top and he's acting like somebody who is, it doesn't have that same sort of feel to it because he's kind of earned that right. But when he hasn't earned it and he's acting like that, it's brilliant. It's comedy.
Everything is unpolished, an unpolished version of what you now know, which makes it all the better, I think. And that's what I was saying about the Outlaws as well. I feel like they're just kind of like off the chain and doing whatever they want, and it's class. So we've got Shamrock and Mark Henry versus two members of the Nation, which I can't remember who that is. Is it The Rock and Kama or something?
I think it's D'Lo and Kama.
Right.
I think.
and he's got the
you're right. Actually, The Rock probably is in there.
Mark Henry's got the Rocky Sucks T-shirt on, and eventually he turns on. Well, he didn't really turn on Shamrock, but he switches sides, and he's unveiled as the newest member of the Nation of Domination, and they beat down Shamrock, and Farouk's kind of looking at, you know, like you say, like The Rock saying, look what I've done, I've brought you Mark Henry sort of thing, and he's looking at him like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's great, and it's really good for the story, because you've got two performers in Rock and Shamrock who had really good chemistry for their matches, and it's a really good feud between them for the Intercontinental title, because you've got Shamrock as this, you know, ultimate fighter, and he's aggressive and he snaps and he looks at times unbeatable in the ring. Then you've got The Rock, who is kind of, you know, he's obviously got talent and can beat people, but he's kind of playing this slightly, you know, slippery heel, in that he just gets out of situations with his title. And this is just another sort of element to it with turning Mark Henry, but it also plays into the overriding Nation story as well, just of Farouk being not best pleased that somebody's been brought in and it wasn't his decision.
Yeah. The Rock is so beefy. That's one of my big comments I've written down here. Rock looks so beefy. JR claims that he's 275 pounds at the Rumble.
Wow. That would be heavy for The Rock anyway. But yeah, he does look a bit more beefy than he did certainly later in his career.
This must be so we're about a year out from obviously from Rumble 99 when he starts wearing the shirt, and the rumoured breast reduction surgery that he supposedly has. Maybe trimming some of that beef off after then. Anyway, was there anything else from the Go Home Raw that you wanted to highlight?
I think just the thing, you know, we talked about the Nation, we talked about DX, but factions are definitely a big thing here. You've got, I wrote down the names of a couple others, but they're not as high profile, but you've got Los Boricuas, you've got the Truth Commission, you've got DOA, and they're all kind of, I don't know, rival gangs, and it just, I think, gives some of the members, you know, a bit of storyline intrigue there between them and the dynamics between each team, and it's not something you get a lot of in the more modern day. You don't get an awful lot of factions.
No, it's interesting. Like, on reflection, after watching this Rumble, I expected to see this really stacked roster of like legends, but on reflection, the roster's quite thin.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's all these factions gives the gives the storylines a bit more dynamic, and you do get this mixture and interlinking the storylines in it, and I think it works really well when you've got that kind of thinner roster.
Yeah, agreed.
That was one thing I was gonna say to you. We could have picked a random year, and there would have been some big guy that Vince was clearly getting excited about at the time. This time it's Kurgan. Yeah. With Don Callis, with his weird gem thing on his forehead. Yeah. What was he called? The Jackal?
I think that's it, yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
I was like, has Kurgan got long black nails? But it's like tape on his nails or something.
Yeah, I've seen him in films and things like that, this Kurgan guy, just where, like, he's just sort of some massive muscle-bound guy, just in the background, you know, and he's so recognisable, and I'm like, it is, yeah. And it's, I don't think he was ever really cut out for the wrestling game, but he is a class. I bet Vince just took one look and thought, yes.
He definitely. It's good to see where Braun Strowman gets his promo style from, at least. Just shout and growl.
The other thing I sort of picked up on with this show, and I don't know if it's just the years and years of it being force-fed to us, but it didn't feel like, and I know Vince has had his Bret Hart moment and all that, and he has been on screen, but he's very much his storyline seems to be the Tyson thing while we're here at the moment, but there's no sort of dastardly on screen taking up half an hour of the show authority figure.
Yep.
It's more about the talent and
Yep.
you know the storylines, and that kind of jumped out at me.
I agree with that as well, and also I don't know if it's just striking because of the kind of current world that we're living in, but the fans, I don't know, it just felt raucous, and the fans felt into it, and there were signs everywhere, and that really jumped out at me as well.
Yeah,
but it was a great go home Raw to me, and it got me pumped for the Rumble. So let's jump into the Rumble.
cool.
What was the date? Did you say there?
18th of January.
So 18th of January 1998.
Yeah.
Never Ever by All Saints is number 1 in the UK charts.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was a banger, Adam.
Yeah, it was. I think I was. I must have been a student. Yeah, I would have been a student when this was all going on. Would have been having the time of my life.
What sort of musical phase do you think you were going through at that point?
I think I'd gone through the metal phase. I think I would have been over that by now. I think I would have been quite into a lot of indie type music right now.
Nice.
What about you?
Like I was heavy into Britney Spears before she became famous at this point.
Okay.
Kind of went off her when she hit the mainstream. I honestly have no idea. What would have been 16? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So we're at the Royal Rumble. First thing that hits me, sign in the crowd. Tyson killed Tupac.
Amazing.
We've got JR and King on commentary, which I liked, and we had a really dramatic opening, which was voiceovered by Michael Cole, which I'm not sure if that's like a new voiceover or if he did that at that time. I don't remember Cole being around at this point, but he clearly was.
He was doing backstage interviews, I remember that, but in terms of like voiceovers and things like that, I'm not sure. It might, as you say, it might have been something that's just been redone in recent years.
Sprinkled throughout the show we get something we never really touched on was the whole thing of Austin being a marked man, going into this Rumble. I don't really understand why.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an odd dynamic. I think what they're trying to do is make sure the deck's nicely stacked against him, because they want him to, he's going to be the guy, so you want him to have to overcome a lot to get there. I know this would have come a year after he'd won the Rumble. Would have won it in 97,
yeah.
And then didn't get his Mania title match because they ended up doing a 4-person match for the title, which he was involved in, but it was because he'd basically cheated to win that year. He'd been eliminated, he snuck back in and then eliminated everyone else.
Yeah, that's why he ended up having his match with Bret Hart, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think you've got the sort of natural storyline of, I deserve this, I'm going to win this, nothing's going to get in my way. But he kind of starts taking people out. Now, it's
that's right, of course, that's right.
They're not going to be, from a stunner, they're not going to be unable to make it to the Rumble 6 days later, but it's like he's trying to put down a marker, but then he's done it to so many people or so many groups that you've got to think payback's going to become a factor.
Yeah, and there was random times on Raw where he would the glass would smash, he'd come out and hit everyone with a stunner and go back in, go back out again. So what I was going to say was kind of sprinkled throughout, you've got the various gangs of people, the different factions try to look for Austin. Los Boricas seem very, very keen on finding Austin. I think they're maybe playing up an angle where they've been paid money by DX to help them out.
They have certainly a couple of times across the shows I watched in the build up to this. They are assisting DX in some way, so I think that the implication's there for them, definitely. So
we've got them trying to find Austin, and they never ever do, and it's kind of I think King eventually ends up saying that he's found out that somebody eventually got to Austin. He was away to a medical facility, and there was a question as to whether Austin was actually going to join the Rumble and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it felt like King was going almost full old school Bobby Heenan, because he was just like making things up and talking about his sources and stuff like that, which is what Heenan used to do just to wind up Gorilla Monsoon.
And JR obviously takes the bait.
Yeah.
I always feel like with JR, he's almost too much of a supporter of Austin, to the point where he was like, you're going to make yourself ill, mate, if you keep going on the way you're going on. Just calm down a wee bit. God love you, JR.
Yeah.
So, first match, out the gates, we get the artist formerly known as Goldust with Luna Vachon. And you can do a really good Luna Vachon impression, Adam. Yeah,
I'll save it for the next time.
Okay, cool. And he goes against my guy, big fan Vader, I was going to say. Vader versus Goldust there. Huge pop for Vader from the crowd. Yeah,
I think, I didn't see that much of him in WCW, but he's one of those that you kind of know, he's got that name as soon as he joins. And I think when he did join WWE, there was quite a lot of enthusiasm, because he'd been an absolute superstar in WCW, and I think went and did really well in Japan as well. Sort of massive monster heel. And he's, I think, pretty well known for quite a stiff fighting style, but he's a pretty intimidating looking guy.
I think he's great, and you and I spoke about him separately before, and I just think he's really underrated. I like those punches he throws in the corner; they look really authentic. He's intimidating, like you say. I remember as a kid watching him on WCW when they had the old blue ropes and the blue canvas, and he just squashed everybody. I think he's brilliant, but it's maybe just a kind of I maybe bring that with me from my childhood more than anything else.
Yeah.
But he's good.
He never got the huge push, did it? I think there was a whole situation where he got a match against Michaels, and there was a big botch mid-match, and Michaels started like hurling abuse at him, and I assume with the power Michaels had at the time, that was basically it in terms of him getting title shots and things like that. I can't remember exactly what the botch was, but it was something went wrong in a match, and Michaels kind of broke character and just had a go at him for it.
That wouldn't be Shawn Michaels breaking character. Well, Shawn Michaels being an asshole. That's his gimmick.
Yeah, true.
It wasn't anything to do with Vader's eye popping out, no?
No, not that time.
Good.
No.
I did mention on Twitter, from our Twitter account, that Vader should have been a champion, and our number one listener, Pat, did point out to me that he did get a bit of a push in 1996, and they actually named an In Your House It's Time, as in It's Vader Time. But Michaels lobbied for him not to drop the title to Vader at that pay-per-view,
right?
As is his wont as an asshole.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pat for the constant knowledge of knowing everything there is to know about wrestling. What do you think of this match?
I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty hard hitting. I think all Vader matches have that look and feel to them. I was never the biggest Goldust fan. I don't know, I just couldn't quite get into the character. I felt like it went a little bit too far for my taste, certainly at the time. And I didn't really know what they were going for at this stage. I think when he first came on the scene as Goldust, I could see what they were aiming for, or I thought I could, but I think by now it's kind of, I don't know, it's almost jumped the shark in my eyes, and I don't know what the plan is, really. But pretty decent, hard-hitting match, but I was horrified when I saw the finish and what happened to Luna.
Like, yeah, when you see it in slow-mo... Well, you're saying horrified, I've got written down here, what a great spot, what a bump Luna took.
I assume So because
There's no control in that, is there?
no. So for the finish, Luna is on Vader's back. She's trying to stop him, and he just climbs the ropes anyway to execute. Is it a Vader bomb? Is that what that finisher is? So Goldust laying on the ring. Vader's gonna basically jump off and squash him. Luna is on Vader's back, but when Vader jumps, Luna is no longer properly attached to his back. And then when Vader lands, she lands just, a wee bit in front of him. And she just looks like she takes a horrendous knock off the mat. And then when you do see it in slow motion, because the commentators play up on it a bit, and I'm like looking and thinking, oh, that didn't look good at all.
So they kind of, there's an initial point where they tease Vader getting up on the ropes to do Vader bomb, and I think Luna distracts the ref and Goldust hits the low blow. But eventually, very quickly, that doesn't really go to his advantage, and Vader ends up back up here again, but this time with Luna on his back, and I thought, oh, here we go, disqualification. But nah, the referee just lets it go in flight with Luna on your back. So like you say, our kind of legs at one point end up higher than her face. And as she comes crashing, that's horrendous. It's really bad, but it's really entertaining to watch as well.
Were you a Goldust fan?
No, I was going to say, I wonder if there were many Goldust fans. It kind of feels like they had a creative character for him with the whole what was her name, Marlena Terry Runnels chomping cigars, and him with this blonde wig, and he's I assume dressed like an Oscar, and he was a film director and all that sort of stuff. And then what it seems like is they've invited somebody's child into a creative, filled him with sweets, and then just told him to tell them what to make him. I want him to have his clothes on inside out, and it's just absolute madness. It's crazy. Throughout this match, when they pan across the crowd, if you didn't know it's 1998, then you do now, because there's a Ted Turner is gay sign.
Wow.
Nothing screams attitude era like homophobia from the crowd. I enjoyed this match. I thought it was good. I think Vader should be the WWF champion, and I think he should be WWE champion right now as well.
Okay.
And I was really excited to see where it came out in the Rumble, but we can talk about that when we get to it.
Okay.
At this point in time, we cut to Michael Cole, who's standing in his tuxedo in the kind of what would you call that? The bit where the cars come in.
Yeah. I don't know what you would call that.
Backstage. Which, like, when it was round about this era, 98, 99, 2000, I feel like you used to always get guys appearing in cars and there being like stuff like this happening, but they don't really seem to do that anymore.
No, true.
I guess when you're in a pandemic, like it probably wouldn't have quite the same impact, like Drew McIntyre pulling up in like an electric car with a sword and a kilt.
I'm imagining it now, and it's quite entertaining in my head.
Anyway, we've got Michael Cole waiting on Mr. Austin, as he calls him, and Austin gives him the full on, just park my damn truck, which I liked.
Yep.
So I'd like you to do a deep dive on the next match that we've got on the card.
So the next match with Max Mini Mosaic Nova against Battalion, El Torito and Tarantula, and it's refereed by Sonny. So this I have to say I didn't pay all that much attention while this match was on. I think they talked about one of them being the smallest professional athlete in the world. And the guys can move and all that, but it didn't really grab me, I must say.
Do you know who that was under that Max Mini costume?
No.
Yeah, it's Dean Malenko.
That's Dean Malenko?
No.
It can't be.
No, it's not. It's not. Sorry.
I mean, if you'd thrown me a Rey Mysterio, I might have, had to look it up or something like that, thinking it could be, but no.
This was weird. This felt like, I know they used to do this, but it was quite odd. What do they call them? The mini superstars or something like that?
Yeah.
Minis. It seems like an excuse to get Sonny in some sort of referee gear and for King to throw out his inappropriate one-liners.
Yeah, so I actually wrote in my notes, seemed an excuse to fill time and get Sonny on the screen. That's
King, I'm going to read you two of King's lines, because some of them were genuinely quite funny, but probably really offensive. He'd make a good hood ornament for my car, he says about one of them at one point. And he says something about if he was to kill Suicide, he'd have to fall off the curb or something like that. So that wasn't a good one. Also, I think at the Raw before this, King says, I'm not even sure if I can say this. King, nah, I'm not saying it. It's totally inappropriate. I'm not saying it. Go back and watch that Raw. You'll find a really, really, really inappropriate line from Jerry King Lawler, and it came back to haunt him because I'm fairly sure he got accused of something that he makes a joke about.
Oh, I've just remembered what it was. Yeah.
What the hell was he thinking saying that?
I don't, because I even think JR's reaction was a wee bit like,
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
Next match was for the Intercontinental title, and this, to me, was class.
Yeah, this was great.
The Rock defending his Intercontinental title against Shamrock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was back and forward. Like I think you said about the Go Home Raw, they've got really good chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah, and they match up pretty well physically, and there's that good difference between the two characters. It's a really natural feeling storyline between the two, because the character The Rock's playing, you can imagine, would just infuriate someone like Shamrock.
Yep.
And it just kind of works. I've heard Shamrock say since that he was one of his favourite people to work with, because it just worked. Everything just clicked. They didn't have to put an awful lot of work into it or anything like that. He was probably his most natural opponent, and I think it really comes across in the matches. And when we went into it, I remember two matches between the two, and I couldn't remember what finish this one had between the two. And it's just I thought a really good finish. Because
it's really inventive.
Yeah.
I believe this was one of Pat Patterson's finishes that came up with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's alright.
I found I liked the flow of the match. You had kind of Rock slowing things down a lot of the time, stomping away, sort of beating away on Shamrock, and every now and again you'd get this little bit of electricity. You'd have a Hurricane Rana for Shamrock, a belly to belly, or a suplex. He hit him with a beautiful fisherman suplex at one point, perfect plex. And then there's one of at one point where Shamrock's taken over, Rock comes back off the ropes and he hits him with that DDT where he goes all around the body.
Yeah.
I loved that move. I used to love doing that to people when we were in like the sixth year at school.
Awesome. I mean, when it gets to the finish, you've got the predictable interference by the Nation, because why wouldn't they? And then it's when Rock uses a distraction to get the brass knucks and delivers the punch. I'm a little bit, I'm picturing going back to me watching this the first time, and I'm thinking, it's a fluff finish. But then there's the clever wrinkle to it, because to then put the brass knucks in Shamrock's trunks, and then Shamrock kicks out in the end. He doesn't get pinned, takes control, delivers his finisher. I can't remember the name of it.
He just hits him with a belly to belly.
Oh, it's a belly to belly. That's what he does.
Not the Bailey to belly.
And then pins the Rock 1, 2, 3, and then you're thinking, new champion, okay, and then the Rock immediately is gesturing to the ref that he got hit by something, he got hit by a foreign object, and the referee then asks Shamrock the question, pats him down. They find the brass knucks that Shamrock doesn't actually seem to have any clue would be in there. He's selling it quite well. And the referee overturns the decision, awards the title back to The Rock via disqualification finish. And the Rock sneaks away with his title. The Nation help him to the back, and Shamrock snaps and attacks the ref.
Yeah.
And it's just such a clever finish. I loved the way this was done. I absolutely loved it.
Genius. It plays right into so many different things. It plays into The Rock's kind of heel behaviour, and that slippery heel character that he's playing that you talked about from the Raw, and it obviously plays into like, this guy's an absolute maniac. You don't want to get him to snap because he'll just kill everything round about him. It's brilliant, and it leaves it open to. Obviously leaves it open to the storyline continuing as well. Yeah, and what I really liked as well about it is the Rock with this kind of thing is positioned as being pretty clever. You know, he might be brash and arrogant and cocky and all that, but he's got a plan. He knows not just to hit him, but to then get a little insurance policy, and I like that. I like that they've given him that element. Yeah, it was brilliant. I don't think I've ever seen this finish before. You know, a lot of time you think, they're doing that or they're doing this. I've never seen this before. I loved it. It's really good. And at this point in time, Shamrock's good in the ring, and he's also good at like the kind of emotional stuff as well. And he's only really been, I think his debut the WrestleMania 13 guest referee spot. Yeah, it was. Yeah, he's not been in for a long time. No, I think we've talked before about, should he have been given either a world title run or a programme for the title. And I know we're not far away from them having a hell of a lot of, absolute top guys, but it does seem like there would have been space for it, especially I think when The Rock had the title, because it's already shown they can work so well together. Yeah, totally agree. And he's got that background that gives him the authenticity to be able to beat anybody. Yeah. But he would be second in the pecking line behind my boy Vader, obviously. Of course. Yeah. Next match, we get a bit of a set in the scene with another dramatic voiceover from Michael Cole, and we see the Outlaws and DX chucking Road Warrior Animal through a table. Yeah. Which I assume happened around about December time. Yeah. It's quite an interesting dynamic, because I remember the Outlaws and DX being affiliated a few times, but this is, still a few weeks or a couple of months before they're actually joining DX. But I'm sure I've heard somewhere it was always in mind to have them join with them, but until Michaels left, it was felt that the Outlaws didn't need it. They were starting to do pretty well on their own. But I think when Michaels leaves, okay, sure, X-Pac comes in, but it maybe needs a bit more than just the two of them when Shawn Michaels isn't there anymore. But yeah, there's obviously already a little bit of an affiliation on camera between the two groups. Yeah, I like that. I like that they're not they're not official members, but they are aligned and they do things together and all that. Yeah. Without it needing to be like they are in this group or they are not. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, they're playing up the fact that Animal's got a really bad back injury because Outlaws put him through a table. Yeah. What did you think about Legion of Doom here? I think I felt like they were kind of done. Yeah. Not just from a physical standpoint, which I'm sure they were still great shape and able to go in the ring, but I just feel like from a storyline point of view and from where the business was, I think they were their time at the top was gone, really. Totally agree. After the Outlaws, I think the Outlaws come out first. And they're going for the old cheap heat with the Packers jerseys on. Yeah. to rile up the San Francisco crowd, or we're in that area anyway.
Yes.
We get a promo from the Legion of Doom, and I just wrote down that this feels completely out of time.
Yeah.
This felt like an early 90s promo, and
It did. Yeah.
it just felt really odd, and I was like, oh no. Oh no, this doesn't work at all.
And I think it's even just some of the wording used just didn't fit. I don't know. It felt like they hadn't moved with the times at all.
Yeah.
And like you say, they were probably delivering like a, I don't know, 1980s promo or something like that. It didn't grab me at all.
Sad to see.
Yeah.
Like they still get their pop when they come out, and that music will always get a pop. You could play that at your funeral and get a pop, I think, for it.
Yeah.
But I think this match, and I've read places otherwise, that Hawk they were a bit concerned about Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was mentally or if he was having issues with substances and all that. Obviously they played that up further down the line.
Yeah.
But it felt like they really leaned on Animal in this match.
Yeah.
I mean,
for part of it, Hawk's actually part of the story of the match, because the match, it's a bit of a brawl type match. You know, there's some body slams and things like that, but I think with the styles of the teams, you know, quite a lot of it just descends into a little bit of brawling. But there's a point in the match where the Outlaws handcuff Hawk to the ring, to the ropes, so that they're basically making it a handicap match. And again, just looking into what you've said, it is maybe the case that they might not have wanted Hawk performing moves. They might not have trusted him to be in the ring for the full match and things like that. And it's a sad situation. But if somebody is, like you say, either physically or mentally not able to really perform, they maybe have to take some, you know, do some things to safeguard people and things like that.
Yeah. There's an instance. Have we talked before about Animal's power slam?
I don't know.
Has he got the best power slam in wrestling?
It's a good power slam, because there's one where he catches, I can't remember which outlaw it is, but as they're coming off the top rope.
Oh no! No, that's not good.
But yeah, he looks like he's about to crumble under him as he catches it. And it was worrying.
He proper drops. It was Billy Gunn.
Okay.
I've wrote down here, Animal just literally power slammed Billy Gunn on his head. Yeah.
And it looked kind of dangerous for both of them, because it looked like, I mean, I don't know, I assume the back injury thing was a kayfabe injury, but I mean, if he didn't have one before, I'm pretty sure he did after that.
He did a good job of selling it. Unfortunately, he's just paralysed Billy Gunn.
Yeah, I mean, he did have, I think, good power slams previous.
Yeah, no, he did.
But yeah, it's just one of those where you watch and you think that's not safe. That shouldn't be happening.
It's out of control.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a bit of a brawl. It's not the greatest match in the world, but you get a good feeling for the Outlaws here. You just get their characters. Like I said earlier, they just feel like they're a bit off the leash and they're just doing whatever they want, and it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And I think they kind of go through, we won't talk too much about what's to come, but they go through a couple of putting the Outlaws against sort of older, more established people, and I think it provides a really good contrast, because the Outlaws are the future and what's coming, and they're putting them over on LOD, and then they have further tag matches against people like Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, you know, and it does just give that contrast of, you know, this is the new young attitude compared to the sort of older, more established performer.
Yeah, totally agree. The finish comes in this match where Road Dogg basically has enough and hits Animal with a chair. Hawk what an incredible thing happens where once the match is over, Hawk then manages to snap the handcuffs and make it in the ring and helps him out. But I'd like to think that this wasn't leaving it open to go anywhere else, but I genuinely don't know if it does or not.
It might. I can't actually remember. I know, like in terms of the big shows where the Outlaws end up going, but there's a few weeks between now and then, so there might be another.
Cool. So we get to something that doesn't really happen anymore. We get the Rumble match first, then we get the title match.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the Rumble, shall we?
Yeah.
What do you think of it overall?
I enjoyed it. I think, like you, it wasn't as, star packed as you maybe think it would be at this time, but I think, WWE have lost a lot of their stars to WCW, and they're in the process of trying to build new ones, and some of them just aren't quite there yet in terms of being top level. But I thought it was interesting for a few elements to it. Just talking about, they've done this a few times, but you've got tag partners starting the match. We just mentioned Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, who come in at 1 and 2, and then they really sell in, which I think they did more in the old days than they do now, the fact that this is every man for themselves.
Yeah.
And while there are a few occasions where people team up, you do get a lot where it might have made sense for them to, but they don't.
Yeah.
Like you've got The Rock and D'Lo fighting at points when there's multiple other people in the ring, and I think sometimes I scratch my head a bit and think that doesn't even really make sense. But if they're trying to sell the fact that everyone wants this title shot, everyone is desperate to win this, then I can kind of try and make sense of it.
It's quite striking to see the Nation all fighting each other. Like Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, you get like they're crazy, but like seeing the Nation fighting each other was really quite striking. It was really weird to see.
And then what they do between Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie is they, when the third guy comes in, who I have to hold my hands up and say I had never heard of, is Tom Brandy. Oh, not that.
No, it was Tom Brady, the quarterback for the. No, Tom Brandy. This guy was massive as well. This giant Italian guy, and now he goes straight back out again.
I looked him up, and he'd been in ECW as a character called Johnny Gunn, and I also recognised, I assume this was from a previous WWE run, the name Salvatore Sincere. Okay. But yeah, I think of all the guys that actually appeared in it, he was kind of the one that I was like, who?
Aye, same.
But they get rid of him. But we've talked, when we talked our favourite Rumbles, we talked about the fact that there's normally a monster who eliminates a lot of performers on his own. This Rumble didn't really have one of those.
No, it didn't.
And then there's also usually a bit of an Iron Man, and this did have one, and it was The Rock. And I've got to think they're already looking at him and thinking this guy's going to be a top guy.
Definitely.
We need to, start planting the seeds that he can compete right at the top of the card, which is good to see. And it kind of made sense to use this platform to give him a really good run.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the fact that it was Rock and Austin, the last two. Yeah. But by this point, because I was thinking, this is really foreshadowing stuff, but at this point they'd already had an Intercontinental title feud, hadn't they? Yeah, and I think it was a little bit, was this just when they were trying to get the belt off Austin without hurting him, because they were moving him on to the world title picture, and The Rock just does the up and comer, but he had this new persona, and they were putting the Intercontinental belt on him. I don't know how many actual competitive matches they had in the ring. I know there'd been some verbals and some segments and things like that, but it was, I think, definitely, if you just fast forward a little bit over a year, and they're going to be in the WrestleMania main event. So it just shows how sort of quickly Rock did then climb the card. Oh, absolutely, aye. So like you say, we start off with Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie 1 and 2. These guys this doesn't age well. They are smashing each other in the head with chairs.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to watch actually when that's happening now. Just sort of knowing about head injuries and things, and they're really going for it as well.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
What's his name? Funk comes out with a. Is that a real chainsaw? Can it be?
I don't know. I kind of hope not, but because he took it to quite a few matches, didn't he? But surely there's no actual.
Nobody's trusting him with a real chainsaw, surely.
I really hope not, because does he not throw it at one point?
Aye.
Yeah.
Foley starts throwing chairs in the ring and he starts trying to hit them like a baseball. You know, what are you doing? Tom Brandy, number 3, comes in and goes pretty much straight back out and leaves the two of them to start going back and forward to each other. Foley picks up, I'm going to get confused, Foley picks up Chainsaw Charlie, Funk, and puts him through 2 chairs, suplexes him through 2 chairs.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got the whole thing of Foley coming in 3 times and the 3 faces of Foley, which is genius.
Yeah, I really liked that, and there'd never maybe been a character you could have looked at doing that before with, but it was clever. And then I started thinking, well, by the time he comes out again, I'm probably thinking to myself, he's going to come out a 3rd time, so when does this second one get eliminated? Because it must be quite soon.
Aye.
That was the only thing about it, but I did like it.
The thing that struck me was Funk was in there for ages.
Yeah, no. I think I looked this up before. 25 minutes.
Wow.
And he's, he's not even at this stage. He's not a young guy.
No, he does a moonsault at one point as well. I've got Funk goes for a ridiculous moonsault on Mosh but misses.
Yeah, I mean I just looked it up. He's mid-50s at this point.
At that point, bloody hell.
Yeah.
What a beast.
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we get The Rock in at number 4, and The Rock must go an hour, does he?
The Rock goes 51 minutes.
Does he?
Yeah.
He's a superstar of this Rumble, you would say.
Absolutely.
We get Headbanger Mosh, Phineas Godwin, who JR says is living proof of when first cousins marry.
I wrote that one down as well.
Which is quite witty.
Yeah, they kind of... I always felt like they were a bit out of place as well. Just in that it had that, and I know they were associated with him for a while, it had that sort of hillbilly Jim feel to those characters. But I don't think they lasted all that long beyond this, to be honest. But,
was Phineas, was he Midian?
Let me just...
Who's the other one?
Look, Henry O was the other one.
He's incredibly aggressive.
Yeah, so Phineas was Midian.
Right.
Yeah.
The other one, he does something on the Raw the night after, and I'm like, bloody hell, calm down. He's quite scary.
Yeah, there's like a run of sort of tag wrestlers and faction guys, because you've got 8 Ball comes out after that.
That's right.
And there's a little while here where there's no real eliminations taking place, and the ring's starting to fill up, and they seem to be. I've got number 8 as being Bradshaw. Yeah. And I think at this point he's Blackjack Bradshaw.
He is.
And they seem to be making a thing of him as, he's... I think JR's putting him over as this, big tough guy. He's all fight, and he's kind of underlining that he thinks he's going to be a big deal in WWE. So I'm assuming he's pretty new to the WWE at this point.
Right. We get an odd thing here after Bradshaw comes in. So the next person is Owen Hart. Are you able to explain why Cornette and Jeff Jarrett attack Owen Hart?
No. It didn't seem to be following any kind of story that I was aware of, because you would have thought, if you're trying to be logical about it, that if you've got an invading company, or whatever they're supposed to be at this point, that the fact that you've got Owen Hart, who is basically almost in a very public dispute with the company, it didn't really make sense to be that he's the guy you go after.
That's a good point. It was weird.
Very strange. Yeah. I don't know if they pay it off.
Possibly.
Yeah, it seemed really random.
So that's not the last time that we see Owen. So Owen gets beat up, but I assume he gets taken back stage after getting beat up, but we see him later again.
Yeah.
Steve Blackman, looking the exact same as what he's always looked like.
Yep.
D-Lo, and then we get our big man Kurgan, who is just wandering around the ring, no-selling everything.
Yeah. And I think they eliminate a couple of people.
Yep.
He eliminates Mosh, he eliminates Steve Blackman, and then they sort of start talking about, I think JR actually references Andre the Giant in saying that when you've got a guy this size, you basically have to team up and get him out, which is kind of what they end up doing. But yeah, he's he's a big guy.
Well, he's got that going for him, and he's got the black tape on the nails as well, which is good.
Yeah.
So we get Mark Mero coming out with Sable, and he spends a good portion of this Rumble telling Sable where to stand.
Yeah.
And after him, Shamrock comes in and goes straight for Kurgan, and like you said, everybody is just like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's all get him out." So they all sort of band together and throw Kurgan out the ring.
Yeah.
Right at this point where it's super busy, The Rock decides to drop a people's elbow on Terry Funk, which I don't know if you noticed. The Rock and Funk are going at it quite a lot.
Okay, I didn't really pick up on that, but I did like just taking the time in this scenario to put a people's elbow out there. I don't know, would it have even had a name at this point?
Nah, I don't think so. JR refers to it as like that elbow drop or dropping the elbow or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
We get Headbanger Thrash, and then we get the second face of Foley. We get Mankind coming in at number 16.
Yeah.
So I've written here he goes straight for Funk and eliminates him, but I don't know if that means Funk eliminates Mankind or if Mankind eliminates Funk. Do you know?
Mankind eliminates Funk.
Does he?
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Yeah. And then because he doesn't. I just look up the third one. He lasts a bit longer as Dude Love, but he doesn't last very long in it as Mankind. He's only a couple of minutes.
That's right, because Goldust comes out and puts Mankind out almost straight away.
Yeah.
That is right. So then we get Jeff Jarrett, and Owen Hart appears again, and this is sad. This is sad that this is where my mind goes to, but JR refers to Owen Hart as the sole survivor. And I don't know if you've ever seen that photo, but there's a photo of the old Hart Foundation, and it's got Owen, Neidhart, Bret, Pillman, and Bulldog. But Bret Hart's the only one that's still alive, and I don't know, something about him saying the sole survivor triggered that in my head. It's quite sad, really.
It is sad. Yeah.
Then we get fucking Honky Tonk Man.
Oh yeah, and King pops for it. Are they real life cousins?
I think so. Aye.
Yeah. And it sort of reminded me of the thing where King wouldn't really claim Grandmaster Sexy as his son when they're actually when he's on screen, but he would pop for him all the same. And JR keeps referring to Honky Tonk Man as King's cousin, but King just won't acknowledge it. And I think at one point says, "Oh, he's your cousin, is he?" or something like that.
Two really weird things.
Yeah.
I think there's reference to Brian Christopher at some point throughout this as well, and he starts doing that whole like JR's literally saying he's your son, and he's don't start that. What do you mean don't start that?
So weird.
Really weird. Round about this time, Triple H and Chyna come down to ringside to kind of distract Owen Hart. One of them smashes him with the crutch. I think it's Triple H hits him with the crutch, and you get an absolute comedy moment where Owen chases them backstage, but who's coming out? Is it Ahmed Johnson's coming out?
Yeah.
And Owen's chasing them back, and you just see him go head first through the curtain.
Yeah, it's poor Owen. He's trying to do this, serious, I'm chasing you, and then he just takes a tumble. What a shame.
Brilliant. And Michaels makes reference to it on Raw the night after as well. Says something about it. So yeah, I've got written down here. Here comes the botchometer. Ahmed Johnson, always concerned when he's going to be getting in the ring.
He's not good. I mean, I can see, he's huge, and I can see why the likes of Vince had an interest in trying to make him a thing, but I don't think the guy ever had a good match, and he never. I was never interested in him as a character. He just didn't have anything. Nah.
He had a lot of knee pads.
Yeah, he did. He did. Do you? This might annoy you, but I'm going to say it anyway because I've just noticed it. Honky Tonk Man is in this match for 20 minutes.
Jesus Christ. Is he really?
Yeah. Because I was looking at who eliminated him, and I've got Vader, and I thought, how can that be? And yep.
Jeez. Well, that certainly typifies the real lack of top tier talent that they had. At this point, I take it Honky Tonk Man's like a surprise entry, similar to.
Yeah.
We got Ahmed Johnson, then we got another member of the Nation. Mark Henry's in now. Then number 22, nobody comes out.
Yep.
What was that?
Well, I can tell you what Wikipedia says.
Okay.
Which says that it is Skull from DOA.
Because he got beat up by Los Barricas.
I'm assuming so, but they sell it as being the Austin entry, don't they?
Aye.
Yeah, which I think, thinking back to years previous to this, I think they have done before with Bret Hart when he'd lost a match supposed to be in the Rumble match and he'd had a bit of a beatdown or something like that. And you think when somebody doesn't come out that must have been his, and that's how the commentators sell it, but then he comes out later on. So yeah, it's the storyline is that must be Austin because King, from his reliable sources, has heard that he's not there.
Fair enough. We got our fourth Nation of Domination member at number 23, Kama Mustafa.
Yep.
And then basically the moment that we've been building up to throughout Raw, throughout this whole pay-per-view, the glass shatters, number 24, and basically everybody in the ring stops, turns around, and is waiting on Austin.
Yep.
But he slips in from behind. I think he walks over the commentary table.
Yeah.
Classic Austin fashion. Immediately starts stunnering and throwing people out. He throws out Marmero and 8 Ball.
Yep.
Straight away. So
yeah,
he's finally here.
I sort of said earlier it didn't have a dominant multiple eliminations performer. Austin does eliminate 7 people, which is a lot for a Rumble, but it's interesting because it's all the TV and then basically all the show, even while everything else is going on. This is the story. Is Austin going into the Rumble is the story, and logic tells you that maybe just far too clearly signposts who's going to win it, and it probably, looking at the lineup, should have been incredibly obvious anyway who's going to win it, because who else that's in there are they going to put in the WrestleMania title match?
Vader.
Well, looking at it, if it's not Austin, it probably is Vader. Because the Rock matches this match, and he's building. He's not there yet. They wouldn't have done that yet. And I think with Shamrock, he's kind of too invested in a storyline with the Rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, it almost should take the excitement out of it, because you basically know before anything happens who's going to win, but it kind of doesn't feel like it matters to the people in the crowd, and I don't think when I was watching at the time it mattered to me either.
Yeah, I think like this whole Austin's a marked man thing, I think it was really obvious that he was going to win the Rumble, despite even if you knew that. I think they were playing it that it was obvious, but like you say, I also felt it didn't matter. It was the storyline. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about a lack of top level talent, but what a draw for Chains of DOA at number 29.
It's almost as good as you can get. Yeah.
I proper got excited when Vader came out at 30. I am a grown man who knows that Austin wins this, and I was like, yes, he could win it. What are you doing? Yeah, and then another line later, I've got it in my notes. What a pathetic effort from Vader, eliminated by Goldust.
Yeah, it does seem. It seems like an odd story for Vader to be trapped in, one with Goldust, because that's what it kind of feels like. The fact that Vader got the win in the match, but artist formerly known as Goldust, eliminated Vader from the Rumble. That's almost like a 1-all, levels it up. But yeah,
let's keep this going.
Yeah.
I think Goldust hits him with a coconut at one point. Is that maybe on Raw that he hits him with a coconut? Anyway, that's a weird thing to say. So we get down to our final four. We've had Dude Love coming at 28. We've had Farouk coming at 27.
Yeah.
At one point, Los Barricas all coming.
Yeah.
I guess that's Savio Vega's number. His draw was 26.
Yeah.
But we get down to our final four, and for me, like, the final four is always like, it's that kind of way of like the four of them sizing up each other. There's always quite a good moment in the Rumble.
Yeah.
Austin Rock, Dude Love, and Farouk.
Yeah. I
feel like Farouk's the kind of odd one out here. You don't really see Farouk going on to WrestleMania.
No, I think they've kind of played a little bit again on that Nation story, because they've had Farouk eliminate Mark Henry, who is the Nation member that he didn't bring in to the Nation. So the sort of issue between Farouk and The Rock is just, you're just reminded of it in a moment like that. And then for those two to be in the final four, I think you're already thinking they're not necessarily going to align, despite the fact they should. Logically they should.
Yeah.
And it was, I think I would have been the same at the time. I would have been thinking, well, Farouk's not going to win. That's not going to happen. So he probably was the odd man out in that sense. But still, from a storyline point of view, a good person to have in there.
Yep, definitely. We kind of get a little tease of Austin and Dude Love teaming up, and then Austin hits him with a stunner, I think, pretty much almost straight away. And very quickly we're down to Rock and Austin. They have a bit of a back and forth, but at this point in time, like you said, I think Rock's been in for 51 minutes. Yep. Austin hits him with a stunner and he's gone.
Yep.
Austin wins. They instead of taking in the celebration, they pan immediately to a "I'd rather be in China" sign in the crowd.
Wow.
So that was good. Overall, I think it did what it needed to do for Austin.
Yeah.
And like you've highlighted there, it's continued some storylines as well. So yeah.
Yeah, not an all-time classic, but as you say, it did the job. It did the things it needed to do, I think.
Yep. So then we get to the main event. What did you make of this? Michaels versus Undertaker for the WWF title. Casket match, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't love the match. I thought there were some good moments in it. I've got to assume, obviously, in the storyline, they know they're going to Michaels Austin and they know they're going to Undertaker Kane. So they need to kind of make that all come together in this match. I think having something like a casket kind of limits the match in a way. It becomes all about that. It becomes all about getting somebody in and putting the lid shut. There were a couple of moments that I thought were quite a little bit different. Like there's, I think, a point where they're both in the casket and the lid shuts. And I've not really seen that happen in other casket matches.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was watching this with my son, and he said to me, "What happens if they both go in at the same time and it shuts? Would it be a draw?" And I was like, I don't know. And then it happened, and he was like, "Look, it's not a draw." I was like, "Oh, okay, pal."
And there's also a moment where Michaels is kind of he does a elbow drop off the turnbuckle onto Undertaker in the casket, and a point where Michaels is kind of doing a little bit of a DX celebration, and Undertaker just grabs him from beneath and kind of puts that celebrating to a stop. But yeah, I don't know. I think I really liked the Undertaker as a kid because he was different. You know, he had that aura about him and that dark character and all that.
You knew him as a kid?
but I never. I didn't really love many of his matches. I know he had some great matches later in his career and things like that, but I think I don't know. If you think of Undertaker and Shawn Michaels working together, you sort of think of those great matches they had late in their career at WrestleManias, and this is more about the story than about the actual in-ring work, and so much of it's around the casket. But I do was mentioning to you earlier, because I couldn't remember exactly whether this was the point, but when Michaels goes over the top rope and just sort of clips the casket on his back on the way down. And I thought it was maybe in Shawn Michaels' book, because I've read one of his books, where he talks about the fact when he left the ring and all that, he felt okay and he thought he was fine, and then he went to bed and then he couldn't get out of bed the next day, and the Raw after that, he's there, you know, and I'm just trying to think of how difficult that must have all been. But you sort of think, well, what if that had never happened? What if he'd cleared the casket? Because he probably, I know he was not in a good place as a person at this time. He was self-medicating quite a lot, even without the injuries, and he was basically a complete asshole. And he seemed to have to go away, you know, after all this for quite a while, and that probably helped him in the long run, really. But yeah, it's a dangerous game when you're going over the top rope and there's a casket sitting there.
Yeah, it looks quite innocuous, but I think knowing what we know, I kind of cringed at it. But aye, it's horrible, isn't it? Especially knowing, I think I listened to a podcast where they spoke specifically what it did, talking about crushing certain areas of his back. It just sounds absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit different for you. I really enjoyed this match. I feel like that. I think Undertaker works so much better with a smaller guy. I love that dynamic of like Michaels. I think sometimes people think of Shawn Michaels as being a kind of high flyer, but I don't really think of him in that terms. I think this showed how good he is in the ring. This match, it kind of reminded me how good he was pre WrestleMania 14, before he came back in his second stint. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know what you're saying about the casket and that there's kind of limitations on it and they need to work around that sort of thing. But this was all setting up. This match was essentially there to set up Paul Bearer and Kane, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so towards the end of the match, when it looks like Undertaker's taking control to some extent, I'm trying to remember everyone who gets involved as a run-in, because am I right in remembering, is it DX, Los Boricuas, and are the Outlaws there as well? Yeah. So it's basically, I don't know if it ends up being like a 8-on-1 or something like that, and then Kane's the lights go down, Kane's music hits, and with all the build up, you're led to believe from the commentary that Kane is coming out to save his brother, to help his brother, but in fact once Kane gets there, he's actually there to get Undertaker in the casket and hand the win to Shawn Michaels, and then take some liberties with that casket. Absolutely. Were you confused when he pulled out the axe and started hacking into it? Yeah, because that wasn't what I'd remembered as happening.
Yeah, me too.
Thinking, all that went through my mind is, I thought he set it on fire. Why has he locked him in it and now he's trying to break him out of it? Yeah, And I'm always a little bit sceptical when they go to this extent. Go out and beat him down and things like that. That's fine, but it's when you're trying to, because it's scripted, it's storyline. You're trying to suspend your disbelief, and then it goes to areas like this. I think at the time when I didn't know what was going to happen, when it went that far, it ruined it for me a wee bit.
Really?
What did your son think of it?
I think he just kept asking me, he was asking what it was he was pouring on it.
Okay.
And then he was asking if he was really on fire, but then he kind of does that thing where he's a bit too cool for school, and he's like, he's not really on fire, he's not really in there. But then that he's thinking, wait, is he? And then I'm thinking, wait, should he be watching this?
Yeah, because I do wonder, like, a lot of the time when we watch things, because at the time, even when I'm watching this, I don't know, 17, I think, and I feel like it was all geared to my age range, and I sort of think some stuff in WWE over the years you look at and you think that's aimed at kids, and I think this was aimed at quite a specific age range.
Yeah, which is funny because you really have to suspend belief. This guy's a mortician, and his brother is, well, what is Kane? Some sort of char-grilled superhero. He's Michael Myers, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that's probably the inspiration for it. But you're sounding awful cynical, and I think you need to stop listening to your wife. Just when she says things like Paul Bearer, you just need to block that out.
Okay, cool. I'm back in. So yeah, Kane gives him the victory V's after setting him on fire, which always makes me laugh. Do you think he's really trying to give him the fingers, or is he doing like the hand thing?
I don't actually know, because when I saw it I thought it would kind of seem out of character if that's what he was doing, but then I kind of hoped that was what he was doing.
And that's it, that's the end of the show.
Yeah,
Undertaker's on fire. This kind of reminded, is it Royal Rumble 93 when
is that the Yokozuna one? Yeah.
This part of you wonders if that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think if they'd done the same again, it maybe would have taken it too far in terms of what the product is. Because I suppose, set a guy on fire, that's fine, but all of the floating up to the sky and all that, nobody's going to buy that.
So so that's the Rumble overall. Shall we sort of quickly recap the night after?
Yep.
We're immediately led to believe that or not immediately, we have Paul Bearer coming out and cutting a promo, which was really weird. I don't know if I've ever seen Paul Bearer cut a promo before, but like I said to you on text, I'm surprised the catchphrase "because I'm Paul Bearer and you're not" didn't end up on more t-shirts.
Yeah, it must be on t-shirts somewhere now, I would have thought.
It probably is. We should have Bearer 316 says "I just set you on fire" as well. That'd work.
Amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't, like I said to you, it doesn't look a well man, but basically he's saying, I got you, I got the fans, I got the Undertaker, you all thought Kane was aligning with him, and now you're dead. Essentially.
Yep.
DX are hunting for the Undertaker, which immediately makes you think, well, we just seen him get set on fire.
Yeah.
Why are they looking for him?
Yeah, that felt a little bit out of place, because also you would think they've immediately moved on, because now Michaels knows who he's facing at WrestleMania, and the sort of feud with Undertaker has to transition to Kane from there, so it felt a little bit strange, that, to me.
They come across a hearse, which, when I think they get China to go and open the back door, which is filled with women, and they climb in the back, and China gives the classic eye roll, like, oh, those guys with their juvenile ways.
I think they mention it a couple of times. Are they at like are they in some college town or something like that?
Oh, they do, aye.
Yeah.
You're right, yeah. That was weird as well.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I don't know what age those guys are. They're maybe not that old, but still.
Triple H comes across so goofy, this character, especially knowing that I think he's probably in a relationship with China, and he's doing all this kind of innuendo stuff, and then obviously we know what goes on to it. It's quite funny to watch him at this point.
Yeah.
DX also arrange a barbecue for The Undertaker, and they do this big elaborate thing where Michael's coming out the sky, but it's all black so you can't actually see it. Dressed up as The Undertaker and all that, and he strips off, and it's quite odd actually. Like you say, you'd think they'd moved on and you would just saw Michaels and Austin, you maybe get a face off or something like that. But they're obviously saving Austin for Tyson, which is kind of like the marquee part of this episode of Raw.
Yeah.
Vince, we see Vince on the microphone in the ring, and he talks about he's about to make the talk about hyperbole. We're going to talk about what does he say? The biggest announcement in WWF history.
Yeah.
Which is that this guy that just bit somebody's ear off is going to stand at the side of the ring during a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I know he's a huge star, and he's kind of a global name. But I kept thinking at the time, and it's maybe just because I was never a huge boxing fan or anything like that, but I sort of thought, is that a bit over the top? But they have to sell it, I suppose, and no doubt they were paying him a huge amount of money to be involved in all this.
I quite like you get all these various little segments throughout this Raw where there's guys just round Tyson, various factions and backstage guys and all that trying to get a word in with Tyson and speak to him. That's quite funny.
Yeah.
And at one point DX are surrounded him, and all Tyson seems to be interested in is checking out China's muscles, which is odd. But then I suppose if Michaels and Triple H are wandering about with these sausages that they've got and acting juvenile, then fair enough.
Yep.
But yeah, the big thing is this announcement with Tyson. Austin comes out, interrupts it, and declares that, and I quote, "I want a piece of Mike Tyson's ass."
Yep.
So
yeah, it's never totally sure on the wording. That kind of thing,
phrasing. We're not doing phrasing in 1998.
It's maybe one of those where to an American audience that might sound totally, normal, the way it should sound, and we maybe just read too much into it. But maybe. I know what you mean.
So we never actually get Vince's announcement that we know what he's going to make, obviously, but we never get the announcement because Austin interrupts it and starts berating Tyson. He keeps just saying to Vince, shut your mouth. Vince is obviously telling him stuff and he just keeps telling him to shut up, which is great. Yeah, it was. I said to you earlier today before we were recording this that I think it was maybe only sort of late 97 that I got back into wrestling after just a little while and not watching much of it. And so many of the people I knew were on WCW by then, but I was watching WWE. And when I thought of the absolute top stars, it was still in my mind that it was people like Hogan and Savage and, Warrior and that sort of type of character, and as well as, Bret Hart and folk like that. And when I first started seeing Austin and it was clear they were making a big deal of him, I found him a little bit underwhelming. But then it was moments like this, the confrontation with Tyson and the exchanges with Vince and things like that. I'm watching it and just thinking, this is amazing. Aye. It's iconic, that shove from Tyson on Austin.
Yeah, it's a good shove. And they really sell it as they want to get at each other, which is great.
They do. I don't think we're laughing about Tyson, but I don't really give him enough credit for what he does here. I think everything that he does is brilliant. Yeah. He's quite restrained. He's obviously, you know, I was laughing at Bruce Pritchard saying he's a lifelong WWF fan. I didn't imagine that to be true, especially when he shouted that Bruno Sammartino was his favourite wrestler.
It's probably not what they were looking for right there.
Vince is just a bit like, all right. Well, he's probably in a dispute with the company at this point.
Yeah, I think he would be.
Um,
They sort of tie in some video clips of DX speaking to Tyson as well, and obviously when you then add in the element of the exchange between Tyson and Austin, but you still don't know yet what Tyson's role is going to be moving forward. So like so much of this, you're thinking weekly episodes and things like that. I would have been desperate to watch the next episode off the back of what happened here.
Yeah.
I just want to know. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what happens next and things like that. Which that's just good TV, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. We go off air after that, and that's our January 1998 in WWF.
Awesome.
An enjoyable little tour.
Yeah, it was great going back and actually, because I think we both did the same, Raw before, Royal Rumble, Raw after, and we've watched so many pay-per-views in isolation when we've been doing top fives and things like that, that you don't really have a feel for what's going on in the story, which I think is what made the idea of doing a year, you know, it's just so different and so appealing, because you can really look at what the storylines are.
Do you still have the Wikipedia up there? What's our next pay-per-view? I don't want to know any details about it. Just is it a backlash? No, it won't be a backlash.
The next pay-per-view, next WWE pay-per-view is No Way Out of Texas, which is In Your House, which is in February.
Excellent.
And that's kind of the in-between one before WrestleMania.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look forward to that. Before we get to there, we will be heading to the Hara Arena in Trotwood, Ohio for 24th of January 1998. We'll be heading to WCW and NWO Present Sold Out.
Awesome.
Which I am really looking forward to watch. Maybe I should adjust my expectations, but I am really looking forward to it.
I didn't actually look at what the show was or would be from the WCW side, so now I know I can start planning what I'm going to watch when, which is quite exciting. I used to, I'm not sure about exactly at this time, it was maybe a little bit later, but I was one of these people that would try to watch a bit of both shows on a Friday night, and there was I think they were maybe 1 hour apart when they were on, for at least part of the time anyway, so you could watch like a full hour of one and then you had to flick in between and then you had the last hour of the other, but it just sort of, I don't think I watched anywhere near as much of Nitro as I did of Raw, so I think this will be good fun.
Same, looking forward to it. So yeah, good start for WWF. We'll see what WCW's got to offer us next episode.
Awesome.
Until then, give us a shout on Twitter and Instagram at Outlaws Pod. And yeah, we'll see you for episode 13, lucky number 13, where we're going to Atlanta and WCW. Until then, stay safe, Adam, and speak to you for episode 13.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers now.